Welcome to the Adaptation Fund's Innovation Spotlights. We're in our fourth spotlight out of a series of 5. Thank you to everyone who's joined us for the past 2 days and is continuing to join us today. We welcome everyone who's online and also in the room with us. On the stage with me, I have Saliha Dubazdik from the Adaptation Fund. Saliha, what have we been enjoying over the past 3 sessions?
I don't know if colleagues here, good morning everyone, have had a chance to see some of the other sessions, but they were jam-packed with ideas, energy, and all kinds of wonderful things, including yesterday, we got some very youthful participants joining us here. We had a couple of lovely ladies from, I believe, British Columbia, who shared, really talked a lot about the process that they experience in their upbringing at home, where they're gradually handed over and put forward as future leaders. And that is part of the process. That's something that made me think about how I could deploy in my own household that I hadn't thought about. I could see the linkage between their stories, their narratives about becoming responsible adults with really this sense of connection to their environment and a sense of responsibility and stewardship. That was very moving. And so the connection between that and the students from high school here in New Zealand, who are also being brought into this world of, having a voice, speaking up, sharing your perspective, respecting other perspectives. So there was some discussion about how the intergenerational dialogue is going, because of course it's the youth who will inherit this earth with all its problems that we have caused. But there's this idea of listening to each other and mutual respect and finding solutions on that basis rather than we always talk about we cannot work in silos, and this was a wonderful discussion of how to overcome silos, even silos within a community based on age, and the same applies to other types of silos. So that was really, really, I think, moving, and I look forward to hearing other voices. I mean, of course, we're coming towards the end of our series. The final one is today at 1:45, right? Yes. Here. And so this is where the closing will be. I think it's just the right number of series, because I'm beginning to feel that, like you're having a really good meal and it's one course after another. And now I'm beginning to feel like pretty soon I'm going to be full and I'm going to need some time to digest everything. So I'm looking forward to the dessert.
Fantastic. And a good meal is a great way to describe where we are today as well, because today we're going to start looking at food systems. We're going to look at how we interact with nature and how our food systems are part of that and part of us. Across the 5 sessions, we're always thinking about how do we make innovation thrive. So youth were certainly the innovators of the future. We've been hearing from the innovators of today. And right now, we're going to hear from Suli Vanabola, who is going to talk to us a little bit about reimagining what innovation is and keeping with our theme of the strength of Indigenous voices and the power of Indigenous people as innovators and as leaders. Suli, yes, your slides are right here on the clicker. Please. Thank you.
Kia ora katoa, ni Sambulo Binaka. I'm Suli Vanabola. I'm a senior lecturer in environmental management at Lincoln University. I think I'm the odd one out in the group because I didn't listen. We were not supposed to have slides.
How many slides do you have?
I got 11. Got 5 minutes, I can do this. Right, so before I press start, I got time here. So before I press start, when in the conceptualization of this conference, I work with distinguished Professor Stephen Ratua in looking at Indigenous innovation. We've heard Indigenous innovation throughout the conference, but how do we conceptualize Indigenous innovation from other forms of innovation? Okay, here we go. So from classical economic thinkings, Western innovation, which is the baseline, is capital accumulation and for-profit maximization. Endless growth, material labor value from the periphery, global south, to the imperial core, which is why the world's richest people own 1% more than the 95% of the world population. Next, a critical example, space tourism. Okay, they spend 11 minutes and emit 75 tons into the atmosphere, the equivalent of what Thailand emitted in 2023. Right? Planetary boundary, we've crossed many, and due to that growth. Right, I've written parts of this, Indigenous innovation, and problematize Western innovation, which brought us here. But unfortunately, this kind of innovation is being used worldwide to get us out of the problem. So I've worked with Pacific communities and Maori communities in rethinking innovation within, against, and beyond colonial capitalism. Innovation from the periphery to the center, which you've seen in this conference. And the main aim is to collectively flourish, not just for Indigenous people, for everyone. Quite different from the other one. These are the women in Palau. Mese production, taro, etc. And they planted upstream, which really help coral sedimentation. And they work well with the scientists who work in the coral reef science center. This is an example from Timor. And post-pandemic, most of them went to university and they don't have jobs. So they relook at their systems, they work with their families, they work with their land that they were given, they lived on, and develop a restaurant collectively, cooperatively. The supply chain is from their village, and now they exist on their own. Indigenous innovation in Yarra village in my part of the world, the center of the world in Fiji. And the two systems, there's a weir that catches large fish. And because of the tropical cyclone, category 5, all their fishing gears were gone, all their crops were gone, all the things that sustainably support their life gone, they start to realize that there were large fish caught in those boulders. The ancestors built them, they never use it. Tropical cyclone was a conduit for them to use it again. Do we call that innovation? The Tongan economy, I've worked with some Tongan communities, and from their village to New Zealand, and even the Kava Club in New Zealand supported the buying of houses in closer to $800,000. Solidarity economies in Niue, post-pandemic, the supply chain, if you are from Niue, the supply of food come from New Zealand, so there wasn't any plane. They look inward, grow their own food, and run tourism later on using their own resources. Okay, my key takeaways to you. I'll leave you with these two guys, very important people, and they influence all our lives. Adam Smith, who is the father of classical economics, where all the theory of growth exponentially, we need more money, we need more growth, by Adam Smith. He was writing that book when his mom looked after him. Unpaid labor, voluntary labor, care economy, mana-enhancing economy, indigenous economy, always submerged, always sidelined. Simon Kuznets, who came up with the term GDP, do you know GDP? Yes. It's the only indicator of growth. It's the only indicator of development. It's the only economic indicator of progress. And he stated it's not a suitable measure of country's economic development because it doesn't really measure how well we are all doing. We are not doing well. Look at the planetary devastation. Look at all the lines that we have crossed. 4 minutes. We are not doing well. So the conceptualization of indigenous innovations is not only for indigenous peoples. It's about taking care, looking inwards to you, that you need each other. We are in this together. We care more. That's the only way forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suli. Do you have another couple of seconds? How's your timer doing?
434.
Okay, so very, very quickly, what do you hope comes out of this conference that we are all here together? You gave us a fabulous key takeaway, but from this moment in time, what do you hope?
Knowledge justice. So, whatever we do in terms of adaptation, it is supported by epistemic take. There are knowledge systems which support different adaptation strategies. And these knowledge systems are important. And there's a saying that Boaventura de Sousa Santos said, there won't be any socio-ecological justice if there's no cognitive justice. Place-based, contextualized adaptation is important. I presented in a panel this morning, and my topic was, if you want to help someone shut up and listen, because I wrote an article on it. It is based on the idea that local people, local knowledge are very important and very crucial, and integrate that with, if you like, modern sciences, and these systems need to work together. It's not the submission of the other, which is why we end up here in climate devastation. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. So, thank you. Should we hear some voices from the local people on the ground innovating? Is that what we'd like to hear next? Yes, I think so too. So, I've lost my slides, apologies. There we go. So we have in the room with us a fabulous group. They are taking over most of this table. Put your hands up for us. So from this wonderful group, we have two key speakers who are coming up for us. So I welcome up to the front Tira Eruta and Salome Topo. And they are going to tell us a little bit about food systems in Kiribati and in Solomon Islands. Please come to the front.
Okay, Maori and Kia ora. Okay, I'm there and I'm currently working for Live and Learn Kiribati, and we are implementing a project on the ground, especially on Abayang. Abayang is one of the islands in Kiribati, and it's a pilot island for this project. Okay, food system pathway. For Abayang, the adaptation pathway. As you can see there, that's the food pathway adaptation for Abayang. And this is a planning process, identified strategies that would be low risk and achieve the community's food system vision despite climate change and uncertainty. You can see that there are 6 categories of pathways listed on the right side corner. The first one is social issues. The second one is agriculture. Third, financial literacy and markets. Fourth, energy and transport. Fifth, waste, water and sanitation. And finally, fisheries, aquaculture, and mangroves. Despite Abayang being a coral atoll, there were many opportunities to reach the community's food system vision, which would be climate resilient. Milkfish aquaculture is feasible and has been carried out before. Bonefish and some shellfish will be climate tolerant. Targeted composting is being improved through this project and other work. Composting human waste is more risky for cultural reasons. As you can see on the pathway right here, there are 2 important point decisions were being established of markets on Abayang and Tarawa. These depend upon building financial literacy, especially amongst the youth, and reducing the cost of freight to transport produce from Bayang to the main island, South Tarawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Tira. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Tira, come join me for 1 second. Here. Oh, there you go. It's good. Yeah, it'll come on. Don't worry. Do you have family with you working on this? Oh. Okay. Just push that across. Here.
Okay, with this, as you can see, this is the vision for Abayang, and we have been working with the community on the ground, Abayang community, to come up with ideas, and these are the ideas that they bring together, and that's when they presented, and then this is like a vision for them. So,
How many are in the community? How many have worked on the vision with you?
about 40 people.
Wow.
Yeah, and involving the island council, like the mayor and island councils in different villages, and that's how it works on the island. If there's like if there are projects implemented on the ground, we have to involve governments representatives on the island.
Okay, fantastic. And you're leading in this?
Yes, through the Wamedi project, James and the Alaric, we have been working with them and with collaborating with the Live and Learn, and there's build partnership on this, and we work with the community to move forward and targeting the vision for Bayang.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for telling me a little more as well. Perfect. Salome, up you come. You want the, okay, up you go. Everybody wants the stage today. It's perfect. We should all take the stage.
Okay, good for the morning, everyone. Good morning to you all. My name is Salome Topo. I'm with WWF Solomon Islands program based in the Western Province. On this project, we are working closely with one communities that WWF is working with, and we are partnership with the Cotron University and the UTS. I will be presenting on the food system pathways for Ijo Maringe Association, where this association is based in the community. In Ijo Maringe, the adaptation pathways planning process identifies strategy that will be low risk and achieve the community food system vision despite climate change and other uncertainty. You can see that there were 4 categories of pathways. So right here we have 4 categories of pathways. The first one is marine and sea grape management. The second one is organic agriculture. The third one is financial literacy and lifestyle. And the last one is infrastructure and relocation. Some of the pathways were quite risky. Coconut management is difficult because of an outbreak of a pest. The rhinos beetle relocation is risky because it may not be necessary if sea level rise does is not bad. However, they still need to plan for it. There were also some important decision points in the pathways. For sea grape production, the community has to achieve sustainable production before wider marketing and processing is viable. Likewise, for agriculture, there needs to be increased production before the community can market surplus. It is important for brokers to let the community know that all of these pathways must be implemented if they want to transform the food system. Thank you.
Thank you, Salome. Tell me, you can stay or you can come, I don't mind, wherever you prefer. What is your greatest achievement within this right now? Which part of it have you achieved already and that you're really proud of?
Well, for these pathways, the great achievement so far for the first one is the financial literacy training and the lifestyle, where in the community, after we go through the whole process of these tools, the community prioritize what is the priority pathways, and they come up with a training hub. So at this point I'm speaking, there is a training hub that built in the community. This training hub reflects on how the community can have a good hub, training hub, that all these programs, when it goes down to the community, it will support them for the training. They will have an office, and also supported from the other stakeholders like the government. They recognize that this training hub can support the work that the government do at the provincial level, and it will be a role model for other communities. So the training hub already achieved, then it is working. And the second one is that the good governance structure of the communities that we have at the Ijo Maringi. There is an association established of a community, but it is not strengthened. When this project implemented on the ground, it is a strengthening of this governance structure, where there is a House of Chiefs, the executive, and all these subcommittees, and also the rollout of the knowledge brokers. The knowledge broker is identifying the youth and also men and women to be part of the knowledge brokers, that when the training's done at the community level, they can be part of this training. And those knowledge brokers, what we did is that they lead each subcommittee. So in subcommittee, and those subcommittee reflect these pathways. So the first subcommittee is the training hub, and there is education, there is health, and also there is agriculture. So in the agriculture pathways, we have other partners who doing agriculture that they usually invite the Ijo Maringi Association to be part of that training. So we already have some knowledge broker who already train on the organic farming. And when they come back to the community, they implement that, and also sharing the information to the people to do organic farming. And one problem that the Ijo Maringi Association met is that there is infertility of soil on the ground. So this organic farming training really helps the community on how they can plant there, like example, cabbage or other crops within the community, not using the soil, but they're using the knowledge that they gain from the training. So that is another pathway already achieved. And also, I'm happy that there is a knowledge broker model that established within the association, where those knowledge brokers really help this project to move forward. And also, those knowledge brokers will drive all these pathways towards for the future. And there is a vision that is established with the community, plus the governance structure we have with the chiefs, with the executive, the knowledge broker, and the community come with a vision of hope, where they're working together on how they will drive this pathway. So this pathways is in reality. We just not drawing these pathways come up with the result, but it is in reality now that all these KBs are looking forward how to drive it. And also we have 2 KBs here present in this conference, and I thought that that is one innovative thing, that they come and attend this training to learn and also to take the first-hand information, and they will bring it back to the community and share it instead of stop going down there to share the secondary information to the community.
Fantastic, thank you. You said that you hope to be role models. I think you're already role models.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to call up to the stage Huhana Smith and Abina Ofosu. Do we have Abina? Oh, Abina's online, my apologies. Oh, we've gone one too far as well. Abina is online. So, and is Gareth in the room? I think Gareth is in the room. Up you come, Gareth Simon. Fabulous. So, we're going to go on a little tour. We've been in the Pacific Islands. Now we're going to tour to New Zealand. Yes. And then we're going to tour to, hello Abina, welcome. Hi, Abina is joining us from Ghana, and then finally we will tour to Antigua and Barbuda. So you're going to need a microphone. We will need the slides back up just for one moment, because Huhana, I think you have some fabulous images to show us about how you are innovating.
Kia ora koutou. Nā mihi mahana, Huhana Smith, tōku ingoa no Ngāti Tukore Ngāti Raukua ki ahau, and mihi atu ki te haukāinga o Tarohe nei. So greetings to the kaitahu, the home people of this area, and to everyone else who's come to hear us today. My name is Huhana, and I am, if I could just have that slide up,
Yep,
please.
there we go.
I am just talking very quickly today about some innovations that we've been doing in terms of mapping, using photogrammetry, geodesign, LiDAR data on this area. And the area that we're looking at here is the Kuku Oho Estuary coastline in Horowhenua, so on the North Island, so Te Maui, so this is the North Island, and we're the southwest coast between a small town called Otaki and Levin. So this is the Kuku Oho Estuary coastline, and my colleague Moira Potama and I have been working for many years in transforming the thinking around how our people, we own this coastline, between that big river system and the wetland systems towards the Waikawa River, which is owned by another hapu from Ngāti Wehiwehi. So Moira and I, Moira links to all those people, but this coastline is an ancestral coastline. So it's about a cultural grounding that we've been doing this work, from this cultural grounding that we've been doing this work. So between the mountains and the sea, Tararua Mountains to the sea, we've been transforming the way our farm is farming. So I'll show you the next slide, if that's all right, please. And I'll just go to a little diagram. One moment. Right, so now, this is a photo, this is some of the geo-designs that we've done on a project called Me Whakaoreore Tātou, which means let's mobilise. And we mobilise mapping technologies for mapping transitions about the way our farm should be functioning better in terms of climate resilience and also in terms of changing the economy of the way we run the farm. So what we've really been doing is we've been creating a map. So this is our current farm on the left-hand side, and this is what we'd like the farm to become on the left-hand side. So what we've done is that's a map which actually helps reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. It's been carbon accounted, it's been carbon audited for sequestration as an economy for the farm, another kind of form of economy. We've been trying to restore ecological diversity in this area, and they also want to strengthen the resilience of the farm against the climate change extremes. So we've used advanced GIS mapping, we've used drone photogrammetry technology, and we've created highly detailed imagery. And this is to help the decision makers, our Tribes Farm Board, to prioritise land use transition options that balance environmental, cultural and economic objectives. And so these are visual devices for communicating this complex. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we face in terms of doing this kind of work is how do we convince the whole logic of our agriculture, how do we change it? Because it's not actually doing us any favours. It's actually creating deleterious problems for fresh water. We've had our wetlands drained for many years. So this project that we've been doing, and we've been doing this over nearly 30 years now, this was a 3-year project, this one. But what we've come to is the visuals that help our people see what kind of farm we need in a climate crisis. So that's what we've really tried to do from the current farm to the future farm. And if I can just quickly finish off by saying the farm board has enabled us to have the lower, you can see that wetland area. We've now been able to take out that lower left corner. That will become a full wetland restoration. We've also, the loop, that area of the river, we've also been given that by the Tribes Farm Board. So all the work that Moira and I will do with our younger generations is that we will start finding more funding to implement how we're going to actually reforest those corner areas, reforest the loop, and then continue to work on perhaps where we may go with the salt marsh, which is on the the kind of northern part at the coast there, return those salt marshes, return Indigenous forestry for carbon sequestration, align it with our pine forestry, and then return our peatlands. So that's what a climate resilient farm looks like. And if you had to consider all the questions around sequestration, we have reports that answer those questions for you.
Fantastic.
So Namahima. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Johanna. A lot of work in there. Thank you. Wonderful. Brilliant. Johanna, yeah, if you want to sit back down. And Gareth, come up and sit with me. We're going to first of all, though, jump to Abina, who is online. So Abina, tell us, will I bring Abina up? Abina, welcome. We've just heard some fabulous technology that's being used here in New Zealand. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in Ghana?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Abina Ofosu. I'm with the International Water Management Institute in the West African office based in Ghana. And I just want to run you through some work I did with two of my colleagues, Taiti Min from the Laos office of IMI, and then Rehan Muzamadin also in the Ghana office. So we studied farmers in northern Ghana over a 4-year period and how they are adjusting their production to climate change impacts. And northern Ghana, the context is that it's the breadbasket of the country. It provides most of the food that 35 million people depend on. But it's also severely affected by climate change because it has one rainfall season, and for 6 months of the year, there's practically no water. So farmers need to ensure that they can produce all year round. But then with climate change impacts, weather is increasingly becoming unpredictable and it's severely affecting their ability to produce food. And the result is that food prices are really hiking and farmer incomes are also dwindling. So we wanted to study what farmers are doing and how we can support them to be more resilient to climate change impacts. So that's the bulk of the work. So we realized that most of the people are smallholders. They cultivate less than a hectare of production, and they don't. Monocropping is not something that is common in the region. Most farmers cultivate food crops, a bit of cash crops, have livestock as well, and then have a lot of tree crops that they depend on. Some of them grow naturally in the environment and others are cultivated. So it's a mixed farming system and they have dependencies that help them to be able to adjust. Because now climate change is taking a big toll on their yields and the ability to make incomes that will feed their families. And for the rest of the population as well, since food is scarce, food prices are hiking. And working with us and WIMI and other partners, we realized that they need a number of innovations to be able to adapt to the changes that are occurring in their environment. And one of them is that they need to have information. Climate information is key and it has to be on the go. It just doesn't have to be one-off climate information. At all times, they need to have quick access to information, and the information has to be in languages that they understand. So the national system has information services, but it's basically in English, and most farmers do not understand what the information is saying. So they need to have climate information in languages that they understand and in simple enough language that they can make a decision on. And that was one of the things that they need. They also need to be able to manage their water properly because water is becoming increasingly scarce. And because of that, cultivation is mainly 95% in the rainy season, and in the dry season, only about 5% of farmers cultivate. So we need technologies that will make sure that the little water available is well managed. And then on the partnerships bid as well, we realized that it's not a government issue and neither is it a farmer issue. It's an issue that has to be handled from several angles, that the farmer has inputs to make, the research has inputs to make, and also the government comes in to support. So taking knowledge from several people, we're able to provide them with solutions that will work. And then we also need to move beyond pilots, because the farmers actually do need solutions, not things that are only piloted for the researcher to be able to put up articles and nice journal entries, but things that actually work on the ground. And for this to work, we need to involve the private sector. So we are actually forming strong partnerships with the private sector and giving them reasons to know that they can do business and have a social element to it. If we actually know our farmers and know their needs, we can provide them with things that are within their context, are suitable, and then the private sector can actually take it on, because for them, it's their business that they do. For the researcher,
Avina,
you may be able to hold.
I'm going
Yes.
to interrupt you there, Avina. A lot of different ways in which you can help your communities to thrive and to innovate. Can I ask you to just pull it together into one final sentence as to what exactly you want us all to take away in terms of the work you've been doing, the fantastic work you've been doing?
So we have to focus on in the context, what the farmer actually needs, because what may be suitable in one context may not necessarily be suitable for another set of farmers. So taking into account exactly what the farmers need in that context is key, so that we provide them with relevant solutions and not just nice to haves. That's my key takeaway for today. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Gareth, you're here from Antigua and Barbuda.
Yes.
Welcome. So we've just heard from from a continent, and you're coming from an island. What is different in your space? What are the challenges that you're finding?
Right. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. So Antigua and Barbuda is a small and developing state. So we face a lot of different climate impacts. We face a lot of droughts, sea level rise, flooding, and more severe climatic events as the years go by. And so our contexts are a bit similar for like those in the Pacific Islands as well. But I think with our unique context, a lot of our work now depends on how we can adapt to climate change. And Antigua and Barbuda has been able to champion a lot of adaptation efforts. Thank you to Adaptation Fund, of course, for having the innovation window where we're now able to introduce a lot of technologies that the country needs for us to be able to build our resilience and adapt to climate change a lot faster.
So which technologies have you brought in?
Great. So I'm happy you asked. So through the Adaptation Fund, we were able to implement a innovative project that looks at improving water security in the agricultural sector. So similar to Ghana, our farmers, those livelihoods are very much impacted by climate change. As we know, as I said, droughts is something that impacts us a lot. So farmers struggle to have water and available water for them to continue the production and the food security for Antigua and Barbuda. So we were able to introduce a solar RE reverse osmosis technology to help with the production of water for our farmers within the agricultural sector. So usually most reverse osmosis plants in Antigua and Barbuda are heavily dependent on fossil fuels, and it runs on the grid. So if the utility company shuts down, or if there's a climatic event, then that water supply would not be available. So with this technology that we were able to invest in through the Adaptation Fund now, we now have a more secure and reliable source of water for our agricultural sector.
So you've mentioned the Adaptation Fund a few times, which is fantastic, of course. They are our sponsor here. But what else enables you to be able to uptake this technology?
Right, so for us to uptake this technology as well, we would have had to create that enabling environment as well to ensure that we have the proper staff that is trained to be able to use these kinds of technologies. We also had to put a lot of research in to see which technology is most appropriate for us, especially given the high cost for technology, especially in SIDS that have very small economies of scale. So we had to, invest a lot into a lot of research, a lot of training of for our staff to ensure that the technologies that we bring in, not only are we just bringing in the most effective technology, but technologies that are easy for us to be able to continue to utilize and maintain as the years go by.
Fantastic. I'm going to stop you there,
Sure.
Gareth, but you will, of course, be here to chat to anyone in the room afterwards. Thank you so much. I'm going to call up to the stage now Professor Janet Stevenson. Janet, please come and join me. Thank you. You can just drop it on the stage. Just pop it on the stage. Yeah, thanks. Just trying to get your... There you are. Fabulous. Here you go.
Thank you.
Welcome, Janet. So we've just been hearing about different innovations, different ways in which people are working with their food systems on the ground, technologies and people. Janet, can you tell us a little bit about the importance of renaturalizing, how we work with our natural systems, so we're not just always thinking of technology or agriculture, but how do we really engage ourselves with natural systems?
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. Lovely to be here, and I'm not going to sing karaoke, I'm sorry. I was challenged just there.
We welcome karaoke.
I'm going to be talking on the basis of research that I've been part of over the past 10 years or so. A lot of it working with Māori communities, about 10 different Māori communities we've worked with over the years, basically supporting their aspirations to respond to a climate-impacted future. And I'll just make one observation to start with, and that is there is a real difference between working with communities where property and property rights are topmost in people's minds. So it is, how do we protect the value of our property? Do we build a seawall, or do we just take a legal action against the council for trying to put a hazard line on our property? As opposed to place-based communities, particularly Indigenous communities, where it's not about property, it is about papa tuanuku. It's about the place, it's about the land, and it's about the connections to that place. And what I'm observing across all of these communities we've worked with is a universal desire to restore the vitality of the natural systems, to look after the systems that will be destabilised by climate change in order that those systems can look after the people. And that translates in many, many different ways, but it translates into very practical actions like taking young people and old people together on hikoi, on walks across the land to understand it as it was and how it might be. It translates into people working together within communities to restore food gardens or to restore the vitality and health of traditional food gathering places in the ocean. And particularly also in relation to I guess, natural systems, a real focus on restoring the health of rivers and the health of forests so that they themselves can become vital parts of I guess, both how they can protect us from climate change and how we can help protect them. And so this kind of reciprocity is a really, really critical part, and I think fundamental to innovation is seeing those very practical actions to restore the health, the modi of the environment.
And fundamental just here in New Zealand, or fundamental broader than that?
Oh, of course, broader than that. I'm speaking to research, so I'm carrying with me the voices of many people who have shared these experiences with me.
Of course, fantastic. And for those listening online, Janet is getting some feedback from the crowd, getting some positive feedback, almost as if you're doing a karaoke for us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. So we're going to hear now from India. We continue on our world tours, and we're going to... No? Okay, we're going to hear from Maitreyi Venkata, and Maitreyi is coming to us from India to tell us a little bit about what happens when food systems and people interact to create better well-being for all. Maitreyi, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I mean, I really wish I was there, but I know I'm missing a lot, but I'm going to try and do justice to why I'm here. I'm just going to pick up from what Janet left with us, the thought about how people and nature has been reconnecting. And I'd like to take us back in time to the pandemic, which is exactly where our studies started. And we started thinking about urban agriculture and its impacts on subjective well-being. So I'm going to do a short storytelling. I'm hoping it reflects what we found and what is the contribution towards innovation we're trying to say. So the pandemic really reminded us how deeply our well-being depended on nature, which is not distant forests, but they were green spaces very close to us, our rooftops, our balconies, and courtyards. Now, across Indian cities, people started to turn to soil, seeds, and sunlight, where they were finding calm, purpose, and connection in the middle of heavy uncertainty. So our research on home gardening in Bangalore and Pune, two most rapidly urbanizing cities in the southern and the western part of India, captured this very quiet transformation where urban agriculture became both a refuge and a source of resilience. So India's urban areas are expanding rapidly, often pushing nature to its margins, a scene that we see everywhere today. Yet within these dense spaces, thousands of people are rebuilding their relationship with the natural world. They're growing herbs in recycled containers, composting kitchen waste, and creating pockets of biodiversity. And we're not talking about large-scale farms. We're talking about small holdings of hope. They nurture the mind, the body, offering fresh food, fresh air, a sense of grounding amid concrete surroundings. For many, this became a way to heal emotionally, socially, and ecologically. We found that these practices ripple outwards. So a woman in Pune described that her terrace garden was a getaway from chaos. Now in Bangalore, a group of neighbors, they started to water each other's plants and exchange seeds. And their garden became a shared space, a shared social space. So what began as a private act of growing, it evolved into community care. It reduced loneliness, sparked creativity, and fostered pride in living more sustainably. And beyond personal well-being, these gardens also cooled the neighborhoods, attracted pollinators, and reduced household waste. So well-being here is not just human, it is also ecological. And the act of nurturing life in city allows nature to nurture us in return. So this is where true innovation really lies. Not in new gadgets, not in new apps, but in just reimagining our relationship with the everyday nature. A balcony sometimes we forget. And home gardens weave together food, waste, water, and wellness into one living system. So they show what well-being is. It is co-created between people, place, and planet. And these very small spaces hold very big lessons for how cities can adapt, heal, and thrive. So what I want to say today is urban agriculture offers a bridge between innovation, introspection, resilience, and care. So when you look at your balcony next time, every roof, every balcony, or a shared garden really tells us that the future of well-being doesn't have to be built outside. It can be built very much in your own backyard. And I'm going to stop there.
Thank you so much, Maitreyi. A wonderful story and a really important point that you get across to us all. So it is very important that we innovate not just through technology, not just through ourselves, but also with the land. It gives back to us as well in terms of that well-being. But we've been hearing throughout that one of the enablers to innovation is finance. And we couldn't have an Adaptation Fund series of talks without bringing us to the point of finance. So we're going to bring up a finance panel for us. My slides are still not working, but that's okay. We have Peter Zetterelli, Pia Treischel, Monica Barrero, Melina Nyhaus, and Hussein Chanin. 3 of them are going to appear on the screen for us, and 2 of them are going to come to the front. Welcome, Pia, Monica. Now, come up, take a seat. So you have to imagine that the others are sitting with you. They're here in the room with you. Pia, I'm going to start with yourself. From what you've been hearing, What do we need in terms of finance bringing us an enabling environment? How is finance important and key to what we've been talking about? It should just work.
I hope so.
Yes.
It does. Thanks so much, Eleanor. And yeah, I mean, so I did my PhD looking at the Green Climate Fund, another of the funds under the International Financial Architecture, looking at how it allocates finance for adaptation, and kind of based on that, and thinking about a justice perspective, I have some pretty strong feelings about how we might redesign the entire financial architecture, and I do sometimes think that it's that level that is needed. But I'm going to talk about those at some other sessions later today and tomorrow morning. But first, I thought it might be useful to turn to one of the panelists, Peter Zatterley, who's from CGAP, and just to ask Peter about your thoughts. It's a bit odd, I can't quite see you, Peter, but to ask you your thoughts about how we might kind of redesign the finance system and kind of what's needed there to get more money to flow to where it's needed most.
Thanks, Pia. Well, the short answer is that we need to make it radically more inclusive, because it's widely agreed that locally led adaptation is often more effective. We know that adaptation responses are dependent on the specific context that people find themselves in, where they live, what they do for a living, shapes what risks they face and what they need to do to adapt. And as we've heard a lot about in the earlier part of the session, local and indigenous solutions can often be more effective for that adaptation as well. It's also widely agreed that the people most affected by climate change often have the least financial resources, which means that we have to take particular care to direct adaptation finance and solutions specifically to them. But the reality is that less than 1% of climate finance is for adaptation, with even a focus on local communities, let alone on getting money into the hands of households and small businesses to support their own resilience and adaptation strategies, which tends to get lost in the adaptation conversation. In other words, we know where adaptation finance needs to go, but the current system is not even close to getting it there at any meaningful rate. And we think that lack of inclusion makes climate finance not just less equitable, but less impactful. So why is that? Well, our read is, simply put, that the climate finance architecture was never really designed to deploy financing in ticket sizes of $50 to individual households and small businesses around the world. It was designed for $50 million projects, right, by governments and MDBs and UN agencies and so forth, and it does that pretty well. But we can't expect that system to get adaptation finance into the hands of vulnerable households. It's just not realistic. But here's the good news. There is an entire part of the global financial sector that was designed to put $50 in the hands of poor and vulnerable people and small businesses all over the developing world. It's called inclusive finance. It started with microcredit through group lending 50 years ago, but it's grown since then into an enormous sector comprising tens of thousands of banks, MFIs, fintechs, mobile money operators, and the development finance institutions, impact funds, and commercial investors that finance them. It turns out, new data from the World Bank show, 75% of people impacted by climate change across the developing world are already part of the financial system. In other words, inclusive financial institutions are already reaching all those people at the last mile. And by the way, at the same time, it's deploying over $1 trillion a year in financing to those communities, largely mobilized from private capital. The problem is that almost none of that financing has an adaptation focus today. And almost none of those financial institutions are connected to the global finance, climate finance architecture. There's virtually no collaboration between those two spaces, with a few notable exceptions. And that's just crazy, given that inclusive finance can help solve two of the biggest problems in the adaptation agenda: mobilizing private capital and getting it into the hands of the people who need it most. So I think it's pretty clear what we need to do. It doesn't even require all that much imagination, to be honest. It just requires us to get these two spaces to work much more closely together. The pieces are already in place. We just need to connect them. And if we can do that, then we can unlock a whole new level of adaptation finance in terms of both scale and access. Because it turns out that when you talk to them, and we do, financial institutions, a lot of them and their investors already want to do a lot more adaptation financing. The problem is they don't know what adaptation looks like, because that's not something they've ever done before. To put more financing into that space, they need to be able to define and quantify and measure adaptation. And that is a challenging problem, admittedly. But it's one, Pia, that I believe you've been working on.
Yeah, thanks so much, Peter. We have indeed, and I've heard a lot during the conference. It's been very heartening to hear a lot over the past few days of people talking about the need for adaptation to be locally led, for it to be contextualized, and we see this kind of big push beyond the conference in the last kind of 5, maybe 10, if we squint hard, years for this push for locally led adaptation. And there are now these principles for locally led adaptation, LLA, that have been signed on to by more than 130 governments, funders, donors. So there's this sort of momentum towards getting more money, more action for LLA. And so one of the things that, but as Peter pointed out, it can be a challenge to know if it's really working, and how do you know if you're moving beyond just rhetoric of saying, oh, yes, we'd love to do that, but, what does that really look like in practice? So one of the things that IIED, my organisation, has been working on together with some of our partners on the ground is a self-assessment tool for locally led adaptation. So this is not a traditional monitoring and evaluation system. We're not kind of creating a metric to compare projects, but we're instead kind of looking at the plumbing of the individual projects to see if the projects themselves are set up in a way that enables locally led adaptation. So we've designed a set of markers that each actor in the funding chain can use to kind of assess how well their ways of working are or potentially are not aligned with the principles of locally led adaptation. And so this is about mutual accountability. We're trying here to sort of flip that traditional power dynamics where, normally local actors are expected to be responsive to and to report, be accountable upwards to funders. And in this model, we're trying to say, well, funders need to be accountable to local communities and to sort of enable that downward accountability. And so the idea is that the funders, the intermediaries, and the local actors, everyone kind of in the funding chain, can each hold each other accountable against these principles of LLA. So we don't have a very...
I see you have more, but I think it would be lovely to jump to an example of LLA, to some of the projects of how funding is running down. So Monica, please.
Thank you so much. So I would like to share an example of UNDP AFSIA, the Adaptation Fund Climate Innovation Accelerator Program grantee. This is basically, I'd like to highlight 3 main aspects that this partner showed in his growth along these 3 years. Basically, this is an organization in Kenya called World Neighbors. They support farmers to raise goats, and they initiated with an idea of preparing, sourcing their own goat feed, because they were seeing that they were not having enough money to buy to intermediaries. Their goats were not gaining weight, they were being affected by climate change, and overall their livelihoods and communities were being affected. They say, why don't we, it was a very local, innovative idea, someone came up with the idea of sourcing some leaves and bushes that are available everywhere in this area where they live, and prepared their own goat meal. So this was an idea, and I just want to highlight how the support of AFSIA, the UNDP AFSIA, funded by the Adaptation Fund, and in our case, the European Union, came with a very timely financial support and technical assistance to help these partners not only validate this idea, test it, and refine their product to a point that in this moment they are already in the stage of accreditation with their government, a certification entity, to start selling it first at a smaller scale, but at the national level. So basically, with different technical support and the grant that they received, they started seeing how this goat meal needed to be fortified with more minerals, with more added value. They started standardizing, measuring some metrics, seeing how the goats that were eating this feed were gaining more weight, were being more productive, ultimately benefiting the women and the men that were raising these cows. Lots of other value chains, for example, as you can see in the picture here, like the dairy products, started working very well because the goats were more productive. So basically, there was finance and the opportunity to refine this idea into a product that works and that actually they can demonstrate how it works. The second point that I would like to mention is that we partnered with business schools to work together with these partners in agreed needs that they had. And they said, we would like to work on our business model. We would like you to help us explore what is our market. This was a support given by MBA students that needed to do their credits, and it was a very interesting synergy because they both won something. The partners refined their business models, their standard operational procedures, their market analysis, and the students gained first-hand experience on the real world challenges. So I'm just pointing out here that collaborating with universities and other similar research institutes, it's a great opportunity because there's a great opportunity there to win-win and advance the agenda together and resolve problems together. And the third point,
Thank you, Monica. No third point.
Okay.
So sorry.
That's it. I think I said everything. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. So in terms of enabling these ecosystems, bringing people together, creating these synergies to allow people to access their own finance, to be sustainable, I'm going to hand us across to Melina online. Melina? Will be with us in one moment.
You.
Here you are. Fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit more about creating investment-ready ecosystems?
Sure. Let me actually start by introducing one of our winners from the program, Marianne Gishanger, a young entrepreneur from Kenya. And her parents are smallholder farmers, and she grew up seeing how unpredictable farming has become. So good seasons followed by devastating ones where droughts or pests destroyed everything. And one bad season forced her father actually to sell nearly everything he owned, so she could stay actually in school and continue her education. And then years later, she turned that experience into innovation, and Marianne founded Agritech Analytics. So now she's using satellite data and AI to help farmers anticipate weather shocks and make better decisions, data-driven decisions. So that means for her, adaptation isn't really an abstract concept. It's really about giving families like hers the tools to prepare and not just survive. My name, as you mentioned, is Milena Niehaus, and I'm leading the Youth Entrepreneur Program, also called YECO, at the International Trade Center, a program we co-deliver and implement with the G20 Global Land Initiative. So YECO is really about scaling impactful youth-led businesses, supporting the young entrepreneurs who are already having build up solutions for people and planet, and helping them grow their reach, resilience, and investment targets. So each year, the program runs in a cycle: a bootcamp to strengthen business foundation and investment readiness, an accelerator to drive growth and partnerships, and then the YECO Awards to linking entrepreneurs to markets and investments on a global stage. So through training, mentoring, visibility, and investor connections, YECO ensures that innovation can truly scale, and finance is really the bridge that makes that possible. We heard that also early on. So Marianne is not alone in her story. Like, we have also in Brazil, Fernando de Luca, who founded Serra Seeding, a company restoring ecosystem with precision drone that spread native seeds fast and accurate. After completing YECO, he immediately secured $125,000 US direct investment to expand his operation, and clearly an example what happens when innovation meets finance. In 2024, YECO supported 125 young entrepreneurs, and this year we just started to work with 225 entrepreneurs from over 60 countries. We can also see that in the 2024, the cohort created together 493 new jobs and raised millions of capital. So that access to finance really allowed them to grow, reaching new markets, restoring more land, building more resilient livelihoods. So all in all, adaptation isn't only a public sector responsibility, it's really a viable business opportunity that also creates jobs and attracts investment. And I want to echo my colleagues here. Let's remember that the solutions are actually already here in the hands of young entrepreneurs like Marianne and Fernando. What they need is access to finance to scale them and a functioning ecosystems to support them. So now I think our task here is simple. We need to connect the finance them, and scale what works, so that together we can really move faster towards a greener and more resilient world. And if you share this vision, let's really connect and co-create opportunities that help like youth-led innovations thrive.
Thank you so much. Very important messages. We're going to hand across to Hussein. Hussein, if we can bring you up on screen to tell us a little bit about sustaining communities. Please bring our finance piece to a close for us in terms of what we really need to take forward communities and also thinking about those who are most vulnerable.
Good morning, and thank you very much. So by mid-2025, global displacement reached over 122 million people. Many reasons for us to innovate more, collaborate more, and finding lasting solutions for those who had no option but to leave their homes. Yet today, the landscape of displacement is being reshaped. The climate crisis exacerbating the vulnerabilities of over 90 million out of the 122 million I mentioned, and they are living already in countries among the most exposed to floods, droughts, and extreme heat. These realities compel us to rethink the way we work as a humanitarian communities, right? Because this is the challenge as well on the adaptation and the humanitarian element as well, to move beyond short-term emergency aid and towards transformative adaptive systems that build the capacities and resilience for both the displaced populations and their hosts, even when resources are scarce and uncertainty is constant. This brings us to the question I think colleagues and yourselves were asking about: how can finance enable innovation, and how can innovation truly drive adaptation? I mean, for organizations like UNHCR, innovation is about building sustainable solutions and systems with and by people forced to flee, in this case, so across the world. It's not in one continent, not in one island, but across the continents that deliver solutions that delivers stability and social cohesion in fragile contexts specifically. We see this in our nature-based solutions, for example, and climate-smart livelihood models, including initiatives linked to carbon credits, green entrepreneurship, and financial inclusions in Uganda, for example, Kenya, Malawi, and other countries. These community-led reforestation and clean cooking activities restores degraded lands and recover soil fertility and enhance resilience to drought and soil erosion, improving the adaptive capacity of both displaced and host communities. UNHCR, for example, also serves as a catalyst for private investment in these cases, where usually the private sector doesn't invest in displaced communities specifically. In North Kenya, where the Kakuma and Kolebai refugee settlements host hundreds of thousands of people who have fled conflict and persecution, we are connecting investors with opportunities in solar-powered water systems and climate resilience agriculture with some guarantees for these investments. These initiatives are transforming one of the driest regions of East Africa of innovation and opportunities.
I think we've lost you, Hossam. I'm so sorry. We seem to have lost on connection. Pia, you are writing something down. Key point that you've taken from this?
It's just so unusual to see the private sector involved in these kinds of adaptation initiatives, and particularly with such a highly vulnerable group. So I'm writing it down to look up more about it later. Yeah, what an excellent example.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad that we've been inspired here on the stage, and I hope that we've also been inspired in the room and for everyone listening online. Thank you so much to our finance panel. We've listened a lot, we've taken in a lot, and thank you everyone for, thank you. Thank you everyone for being part of that. We want to inspire, but we also want to engage, and it's incredibly important that you have time to connect and to talk. So for those of you who are online watching us, there is the opportunity now to spend a little more time with Milena, who we were just hearing from. She's going to be running an interactive activity for those of you who can join her in that online space, and she will be looking at, of course, innovation and adaptation. Here in the room, we're going to also have some engagements, but before we jump into it, I want to acknowledge that we do have Chief Darrell Bobb and former Chief Harvey McLeod at the front table with us. They are incredibly welcome. We've heard from a few different Indigenous voices and groups during this session, and we haven't explicitly heard from you, but we're really pleased that you are here, and as we go into this engagement part, to spread your voice and to join in the conversations that are happening in those moments as well. So huge welcome to both of you. So the engagements that are happening in the room, as you can see, we have quite a range of people who are going to be leading us through this. So at the front of the room, if you were inspired by our finance panel and you want to think a little bit more about finance mechanisms that can be used, but also bringing us back to ecosystems, how do we support and value ecosystems, then the Nature Conservancy are going to be your group taking you forward. They'll be at the front. Can you raise your hands so we can see you? Okay, they're not at the front at the moment, but they will make their way there. Fantastic. And then at the back of the room, we have a fabulous group who are looking at discussions around power, how we shift power, how we change power, how we change the power dynamic. They're also going to be bringing us through a traditional weaving exercise whilst we think and dive into those discussions. So if you want deep discussion whilst also working on traditional techniques, then it's going to be the back of the room. And further finance, you're going to be at the front of the room. So please stand yourselves up, find your space, and use this time to engage.